Hello. Our panel discussion focuses on how Cityworks has played a role in budgeting. All communities were impacted by the COVID pandemic. Some experienced significant budget impacts. Today, we'll hear from two organizations whose budgets did not suffer major impacts because of their processes and technology solutions in place. During these uncertain times, they were reassured that they're on the right path. They're able to make data-driven decisions using the daily and annual processes of analyzing data, monitoring trends, and anticipating changing demand for services while remaining within budget. Hi, my name is Sarah Sheldon. I'm here with Timmons Group, and I'll be our host. Our panelists include some of Timmons' clients. Rob Vandehei from the city of Escondido in California, and Chris Graff from the city of Auburn in Alabama. The city of Escondido has been using Cityworks since 2001, so congratulations on your 20-year anniversary. Escondido has really focused on enhancing data analysis in the last 3 to 4 years throughout many departments. The city of Auburn has been using Cityworks since 2012, so that's almost 10 years. Much of their success is due to staff getting involved in determining the technology solutions and developing integrations throughout the entire enterprise. Well, without further ado, let's get the discussion started. All right. So, last year has thrown many communities a curveball. How has Cityworks helped you respond with resilience or agility? Chris, would you like to get us started?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Sarah. I think what was exciting for us to realize when COVID hit and no one knew what they were doing, no one knew how to operate. And we had systems that just worked, whether staff was sitting at a desk or sitting at home. And we had products like the Timmons portal for permitting, that because they're web-based, it didn't matter where you were located. It didn't matter what was sitting in front of you as long as you had an internet connection. We had both developers in the community as well as staff that were able to work off of both of these systems. So whether it was the Timmons Root portal or it was PLL, again, being a web-based product, it really let us be agile out of the get-go and provide that continuity of service to provide some sort of stability when things started off to a really rocky start.
Yeah, I would have to say that a lot of the same things. We also have Timmons portal, a well-established Cityworks, well-established GIS infrastructure in place. So when COVID hit, we were able to work from any place and also still serve our customer. More importantly, through the portal, it really allowed us to kind of customize it. That's one of the benefits of the Timmons portal is we could customize it. So given this change of environment and trying to better serve our customers, we got feedback from developers or contractors or just our customers really of what was working, what wasn't working. And we're able to work very closely with our staff and kind of move things in the right direction very quickly. So we were pretty agile in that way, and then also be able to track the processes as it goes through and look at the data as it comes back and really see how are we doing, not just from servicing the customer, but from staffing levels. Are we being effectively working from home or not? Are we meeting those needs or not? And looking at, do we need to outsource? Do we need to, can we meet those needs inside? And just watch the processes kind of go through. So all of the data we get back from this system that we have built has been just fantastic to help us manage those things and really kind of stay on track, budget-wise, staffing-wise, and really, everyone was kind of experiencing this big boom in development. And so we were kind of really wondering if we were going to be able to keep up with all that, but the systems in place were really able to kind of give us those answers and really kind of track things in real time, so to speak, and make the adjustments we needed. So it was really proved out to be a great thing.
I think we also saw as COVID was rolling through the community, and we were seeing staff needing to be flexible in how they deliver services. Environmental services, for example, picking up garbage, recycling, large debris. When you have, particularly in our large debris trucks, you've got two-person crews in those trucks, and suddenly they can't be together, or we're just short-staffed. We quickly learned that there were different pieces of equipment that could support single-person crews. And not only would those allow us to be agile during this rocky time, but just from a larger, big picture budgeting perspective, it just made sense that these other pieces of equipment, while maybe more expensive than a two-man vehicle, they just made financial sense. COVID maybe forced us a little bit into proving that to ourselves, but through the data that we're able to synthesize out of Cityworks and what it looked like for a two-person crew to operate a pickup route versus a one-person crew on maybe more expensive piece of equipment operating the same route. The data in Cityworks is able to prove that, is able to provide that justification, so that we can, when we got to our next budget cycle, essentially we've purchased, the remaining ones are on their way, but a transition completely from these two-person crews over to one-person crews.
That's really incredible. All right. Well, we're kind of starting to talk about how your decision making impacts your budget. So let's talk about, how does data from Cityworks support those budget requests? How does it support that process, and how do you use that data to justify the budget decisions you're making?
Yeah, I'll jump in with, I guess, a quick example would be our fleet division. Fleet division managing all vehicles and equipment within the city. They're using AMS data. Well, they have the entire operation, the entire maintenance process being logged within AMS, and because of that, and because they're tracking material, equipment, labor, they're able to generate per vehicle life cycle reports. So they're able to roll up with that Cityworks history the complete cost of maintaining these vehicles. So when it comes to making a decision about a new vehicle or replacing vehicle, this report, it's a Power BI report fed off of Cityworks data, as well as some data that's pulling from our financial system, as well as our Fuelmaster system, is the de facto evidence for replacing a vehicle in our budget. You don't request a new budget without this Cityworks data. That's just full stop, and that's the decision-making tool. Another one we've found very powerful is just simply staffing. Everyone struggles with getting the right number of people to do the jobs that we're asked to do. Technology goes a long way in helping us do that job better, but sometimes you just need more people. And I guess leaning back on technology, the data that we're able to pull from Cityworks, we regularly use to justify new positions. So we've created our Cityworks administrator position based off of the data in Cityworks, showing how much of our IT time we're spending managing the product. We've had our utility locators bring on new staff, not just by looking at the volume of work that is being done, but geographically where that work is, and how do you best use your human capital to serve this area of town versus this other area of town. That meaningful spatial data within Cityworks really helps show not just raw volumes, but where that work is in a meaningful and spatial way for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't emphasize that enough. Also, it's all about the data. The data we collect as we do business is critical. Years ago, you would make budget requests for various things, whether it's staff or equipment, and sometimes it was difficult. But once you start collecting the data and you can show that data, getting support for your requests is easy because it's all really there. You have all the information you need to kind of support why you're asking for that. You can also see from a standpoint of whether you're coming through a portal servicing a customer, how some of that workload shifts and bounces between your customer and your staff. So some of that starts to change. And so you're starting to see some of those workloads shift. And so maybe you don't need as much staff, or you're able to take on more volume. Or you start to see where it maxes out and you start to hit a threshold and say, well, maybe this is a wave of business that's coming through. So maybe we outsource to take care of that wave of business. Also on the AMS side, the work order side, like Chris was talking about, just having the data of what's being done, how long staff is taking to do that work, how can we analyze that and maybe look for efficiencies. Maybe it might be a training issue. Maybe it might be better equipment needed. Maybe they're just going about in the wrong way. But all that data comes back to management level, and they're able to look at that, analyze it, make better decisions, work with staff, and come up with better procedures, and maybe take staff out of the field for a little while, do some training, and then you can justify that productivity later down the road and say, look, the training worked, and here's the productivity it's happening. So it all comes down to the facts of the data, because when that turns into a budget request later down the road, it's all proven out. And when we started to do that, and certain departments were doing it, all of a sudden other departments saw it, and everybody just started jumping on board. So the success really kind of breeded more success. So it was really exciting to see all that happen and come to life, because you have these visions and you start to connect the dots, and you start building these Esri operational dashboards, and you start seeing it, and all of a sudden everyone starts talking about, well, where'd you get that data? Well, let me show you my dashboard. And before you're trying to convince them to go in that direction, and all of a sudden it just becomes the normal course of business. And then that, like Chris was talking about, that leads to us, making requests from an IT standpoint of saying, we need more staff in our departments, whether it be in GIS or in the Cityworks area, wherever it might be, to kind of support these efforts, because it all pays off, and just, you see the budget dollars drop in certain areas, and it pays for itself.
Yeah, Rob, you talk about that, riding that wave as far as when and where work's coming in. I really like that. I'm probably actually going to steal that. But one of the things we saw on the PLL side with permitting, kind of thinking about that wave of work is kind of the being able to plan out our inspectors' time, and being able to look at the time they're spending on the projects that are coming, and kind of the cyclical nature of those projects coming, but being able to reflect that against the fees that we're charging for doing these different types of work, and then being able to make really intelligent decisions about what those fees should be. And if it's in these cases, here's evidence to justify why the fee needs to be this, but if it's in these cases, here's that Cityworks evidence to justify why it needs to be something different. And that's been really powerful, as things change, as we evolve in a dynamic world.
All right. Let's talk about how you're using data to prepare the estimates or track the use of outside budget resources. So perhaps stimulus funds, grant funds, or partnership funds.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. I have a couple of examples. We have a graffiti program that's built through using Rock Solid as a customer engagement, a citizen engagement piece, where they report where they see graffiti all throughout our city. That filters into Cityworks, which turns for those service requests into work orders. And we have staff out in the field that are driving around with the Cityworks mobile app, and they just pop up on their mobile app, and they just go from place to place to place. It's all electronic. There's no paper, and they eradicate the graffiti. They right away gets a message back to the person who reported it in the first place, let them know it was taken care of. But on the back end of that side, we're able to track that and say, oh, this was in a CDBG area. And so we can use different funding sources based on the location of where this graffiti was at and where we took care of it. If there's blight in the city and those types of things. So that's been just a fantastic tool to help us on a budgeting standpoint and support, different funding sources and those types of things. So we use that constantly for different reasons. One of the other reasons we use it, we had a funding source during the pandemic to take care of some of the things. So we started cleaning the restrooms at parks more frequently. Playground equipment, we started coming in and treating the playground equipment more frequently and those types of things. And we needed to track those activities so we can use those funding sources to pay for those things. Otherwise, that would have been a negative impact on our budgets as we tried to make sure that we had safe environments for the citizens to come and enjoy those resources. So again, GIS plays a huge role in that, as well as these different pieces of the solution. So as we look at some of these things and we try to look at what are our needs and then how do we go about taking care of this. And we have many tools technology-wise to use, and it isn't necessarily trying to make the solution meet or match, directly up to the technology piece. It's the other way around. Is we have a lot of options, and so it's been great that we have all these different systems that work together and talk together. It goes all the way from the public, all the way through our staff, all the way through management, and then back out to the public sometimes. Like I talked about the reporting back, letting them know that their issue that they reported, we appreciate it and it's been taken care of. So it's been exciting to see that whole thing evolve and really just be a solution. And once we find those solutions and how they all work, we adopt them to different situations as the need arises.
Yeah, Rob, you talked about kind of rock solid and kind of that being a conduit to have those communications back and forth. I'm sure you've seen the same. We also use rock solid, and we've seen, not only does that improve communication, provide value, also, the agility of being able to react quicker. But we've seen decreases in other resources because of that agility and because of that connection between the customer and the person that's actually executing the work through Cityworks. So we have call centers whose loads have lightened. We've had, we all have those we all have those concerned citizens that are constantly bringing things to our attention. We've seen our amount of time dealing with those people drop because that communication is much tighter through the technology, and we're actually connecting the right people with the right resources faster. Rob, you were talking about the power of the GIS and the location. We in Auburn often do master plans tailored toward specific geographic areas, specific communities or corridors within Auburn. And those master plans end up being Cityworks projects, what Cityworks is calling a project. And whenever we're doing work within Cityworks, within the guise of that master plan, we're associating with those projects so that when we need to do reporting about how much money have we spent in this area of town, or how much money have we spent towards this master plan, we're able to tie all that back together and actually, provide a number, a statistic or a figure to whomever in no time at all. Where it used to be, it would take the accountants half a day of combing through books and ledgers and notes to be able to pull all that information together. So it's been the location awareness as far as getting funding and showing responsible use of funding has just been a tremendous support for those programs by having Cityworks. We'll also not just showing that we've used the money well, but even going after grants. So for example, our urban forestry, they've got just some beautiful infographics that they put together of trees planted, invasive plants removed, problem trees pruned, just all of this kind of material. They just turn into these beautiful infographics. Those go along with the grant applications. Those go out to the community to really invigorate the citizen engagement over these programs. And so yeah, the data just kind of feeds in both directions, both trying to get that money into the community as well as showing that responsible use of it.
That's really inspiring work.
Yeah, the data for grant applications is invaluable, really. We're all cities are struggling financially, I think, to some degree, and having that data to go after grant funds is critical. We often talk about our GIS data and how valuable that is. Over time, it just builds and builds and builds, and how we collect more and more information is critical. But how do we use that, right? And how do we leverage all the information we have in a positive way, even if it's just telling our story and allowing people to really get on board with what we're doing is really beneficial. So,
yeah, I would say from a personal perspective, we early on underestimated the value of telling that story, of just simple storytelling. We can be as sophisticated as like an ESRI story map to tell a particular story, but it can be as simple as a conversation between a couple people, or a quick infographic or pictorial image of something. But it's amazing how far those go and how long-lived those pieces of information, those stories can go. Particularly when we're trying to look at this big picture, when we're trying to look at how do we fund this initiative or this organization, or how do we be responsible. Those small stories really do have a huge impact.
Real quick, I'll just add to that on the story map side, since you brought it up, is we have all this data collected between GIS and Cityworks that some of our departments are going in the direction of using story maps in council presentations to be able to pull all that data out and present it to council and present it to the public. It's just such a powerful tool to use to kind of get support, to get approval for different projects. So
great. I've just got one more question for you, and I hope to keep this one a little quicker. You've already been touching on your long-term vision, strategic planning. Would you each name just one thing that's kind of helped your processes in your organization shift more towards long-term strategic planning?
I think I can jump in here. I think for us, we've been kind of already touched on it, like you're saying, is the data that we get in, and over time that data builds up, which starts to create a little bit of history, and we're using more and more departments to do that. They're analyzing the data on a regular basis. We're starting to look at equipment, different manufacturers, comparing that against warranty, tracking warranties. Sometimes even though there's maybe two different vendors or two different products that might have the same warranties, the PM maintenance might be different. So we're able to track some of those costs and those types of things that are really kind of paying off now that we have some history behind us. We're able to prove out some of our processes in different departments. Is this sustainable or is it not sustainable? Like Chris mentioned before about moving from a two-man crew to a one-man crew with maybe some different equipment, I'm sure he'll be able to look back at some point and see, hey, was this successful or not, long-term wise? And we've done that sort of thing as well. We're also looking at, like I talked earlier about, waves of business coming in as we're collecting some of those fees and tracking those fees. Is that really enough? Are those fees enough? Or are we charging too much? Because we'd love to go in the other direction too, right? We'd love to be able to support, we can lower our fees here. As technologies come in and create some efficiencies and and change some of that workload even off to the customer as they input data for us instead of us doing it off of forms and those types of things? Can we change our fee levels? We don't know until we kind of analyze that data. So I think some time just needs to kind of build up behind some of those things, but it's been fascinating to kind of track that and see all the changes that have been happening faster. I think our cycle of change is sped up a lot. We've built these systems where we can do things, track them, collect the data, look at them, analyze them, make decisions, and then those lead to another cycle and over and over and over. And that's one of our best assets, I think, from a management level. We're able to see some managers really just blossom and really just take it and be able to become more powerful in their positions. So it's really empowering. Just all the different systems working together and putting these systems in places and seeing people just run with it. Not only from internal staff, but also from a customer base. They're doing some of that stuff too. We get a lot more public records requests, and we're really kind of wrestling around with the idea of how do we share more data so that they can be more successful too, because that's what we're here for, is to be partners in success, right? And so hopefully we're accomplishing that. That's one of our biggest goals.
And I've got to kind of answer that. I think basically the same answer that Rob's saying is riff on this cycle, because that's exactly been our experiences as you mature with Cityworks, and this is true with all the other enterprise products that are tied into this. As you mature with Cityworks, you get in this cycle. You realize that there is that feedback loop, that Cityworks is feeding the GIS is feeding for better Cityworks, that's then feeding back into the GIS. Suddenly the technology is empowering the technology, and like Rob was talking about, the technology is also empowering the people and the processes. So we go from GIS data that's kind of this skeleton system to this really robust GIS data that we're now using, modeling our utilities for 20, 30 years into the future. But we're also using this continual cycle of improvement to hone our processes so we are more agile and we're more flexible in reacting to what's out there. And then we're using it to always be refining our budgeting and financing processes. How do we make good decisions? We make good decisions. That gives us better data. With that better data, we can make even better decisions. We can get more agile, and I think we're very much realizing that position right now. I feel like you start out slow and you're slowly just ramping up, and those ideals of being able to make these grand budget projections and make really, really well thought through master plans or initiatives. At one point in the past, we're winging it as best we can, but we're really at that point where all of that's being fed by rigorous data that can be put into a thoughtful narrative to really drive those things forward.
All right. Well, we're nearing the end of our time today, so let's do a little recap here. Let's highlight a few key processes to help the rest of you create more budgetary success in your own organizations. As we've learned today, technology is a partner on the road to improvement. We've seen such great successes at Auburn and Escondido. We hear they're reaching further every day. Staff at all levels are involved in creating the solutions, helping their community maximize the effectiveness of their budgets while performing so many great services. They're continuing to be good stewards of the public's money, which is very important to all of us. Auburn and Escondido use Cityworks data to report on the work accomplished, analyze it to plan ahead for upcoming projects, and to help point out the improvements in their work. So thank you to our wonderful presenters for representing their organizations and sharing their many great experiences. So please reach out to us if you'd like more information about a specific process discussed here, or if Timmons can help you achieve your goals to implement similar solutions. Enjoy the rest of the conference.